In a shocking incident that has ignited outrage across Africa and beyond, a flight attendant of European descent aboard an international flight openly disrespected Burkina Faso's president, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, failing to recognize him as a sitting head of state and dismissing his requests in a condescending manner, but one point snapping, "Sir, you need to follow instructions like everyone else," unaware that the man she was addressing was not just any passenger but a revolutionary leader, championing African sovereignty, until other passengers, visibly shocked, intervened and revealed his identity, leaving the attendant stuttering in embarrassment as whispers spread through the cabin that this was President Traoré, a moment that lays bare the broader pattern of disrespect and condescension African leaders, and by extension, African people, often face on the global stage. A pattern seen in incidents like French diplomats mocking African delegations or Western media describing African leaders as well-spoken for an African, all of which reflect an ingrained colonial mentality that seeks to diminish Africa's place in the world. Yet, in a stunning display of humility, President Traoré responded not with anger but with grace, simply smiling and saying, "It's all right. Not everyone recognizes me," and later reassuring the trembling, regretful attendant, "No harm done. We are all human," a response that encapsulates his unwavering dignity and underscores his reputation as a leader who seeks to unite Africa against neocolonial arrogance, a man who, despite being a military strategist and a defiant voice against foreign exploitation, chooses forgiveness over vengeance. This incident is a microcosm of the larger struggle Africa faces, a struggle Traoré embodies as he leads Burkina Faso in expelling French military forces, strengthening ties with the global south, and investing in education and healthcare to break free from Western dependency, all while calling for a united African front against neocolonialism, a vision that resonates across the continent. The flight attendant's subsequent tearful apology, in which she admitted her colonial mindset and expressed deep shame, serves as a rare moment of self-awareness, highlighting the pervasive yet often unacknowledged prejudices many in the West still hold, while Traoré's response offers a path forward, one of forgiveness, dedication, and unyielding assertion of African dignity. This is not just about one woman's mistake but about a world that still refuses to see Africa as an equal, a world that must now confront its own biases as leaders like Traoré rise, not with pleas for respect but with the unshakable confidence of those who know their worth. Africa's time has come, and no amount of condescension or ignorance can hold it back. Men like Traoré are proof of that, and the world would do well to take notice before it is left behind by a continent no longer begging for a seat at the table but building its own. In a dramatic follow-up to the shocking incident where a European flight attendant disrespected Burkina Faso's President Ibrahim Traoré, new developments have emerged that further expose the deep-seated prejudices still plaguing Western attitudes toward Africa, while simultaneously highlighting the growing wave of Pan-African solidarity rallying behind leaders like Traoré, who continue to respond to such slights with statesmanship rather than spite. The flight attendant in question, now identified as Clara Dubois, the 32-year-old French national working for a major European airline, has been suspended pending an internal investigation, but the fallout has extended far beyond her employment status, sparking fierce debates across social media, with many Africans sharing their own experiences of being belittled or ignored by Westerners in positions of authority, while others have pointed to the incident as emblematic of the lingering colonial mentality that still frames Africa as inferior in the eyes of the world. Meanwhile, President Traoré, demonstrating the same humility that defined his initial response, has surprisingly intervened in the matter, urging the airline not to terminate Dubois' employment, stating in a televised address that punishment is not the solution, education is, and even inviting her to Burkina Faso to witness firsthand the nation's progress under his leadership. A gesture that has been met with both admiration and skepticism, as some applaud his magnanimity while others question whether such overtures will ever truly dismantle the systemic disrespect Africa faces. The airline, facing mounting pressure from both critics and supporters, has announced mandatory sensitivity training for all staff, but activists argue this is merely performative damage control, noting that real change requires a fundamental shift in how the West perceives Africa, a shift that leaders like Traoré are forcing through bold actions such as replacing French as Burkina Faso's official language with local dialects, cutting military ties with former colonial powers, then forming new alliances with nations that treat Africa as an equal partner rather than a subordinate. Meanwhile, the incident has galvanized a new wave of Pan-African sentiment, with hashtags like #RespectAfrica and #Traoré trending across the continent, while intellectuals and politicians alike are using the moment to call for a united African response to such indignities, arguing that only through collective strength and self-reliance can the continent finally command the respect it deserves. In a striking twist, Du Bois has reportedly accepted Traoré's invitation, telling French media that she wants to understand the Africa she was never taught about, a statement that has been met with cautious optimism by some and eye rolls by others who see it as yet another example of Westerners only seeking enlightenment after being publicly shamed. As the world watches this unprecedented diplomatic and cultural exchange unfold, one thing is clear: the era of Africa quietly enduring disrespect is over, and leaders like Traoré, who meet ignorance with wisdom and arrogance with unbreakable dignity, are proving that the continent will no longer be sidelined, ignored, or patronized, but will instead define its own future on its own terms, with or without the West's approval. The question now is whether this incident will be remembered as a turning point in how Africa is perceived globally, or merely another footnote in the long struggle for true equality, a struggle that, thanks to figures like Traoré, is being waged not with pleas for validation, but with the quiet, unstoppable force of a continent that knows its time has come.